Hi, I'm Mike Shapiro. Welcome to Read the Tape. Got a great guest today, Cody Human. I've known him for quite a while. I've coached him. I can even say he's taught me a lot of stuff because I always learn from everybody I coach. And he's going to talk about a pivot, what he's doing, how he's pivoting, and what he's continuing to do as far as being successful. This guy is really successful, so it's going to be a great show for you to listen and learn. Welcome, Cody Human, one of my favorite people. I've known you for quite a while. My gosh, 2 years?
Probably about a year.
Yeah, 2 years, and I've done some coaching with you, or become friends. I'm following what you're doing in your life. You're one of my favorite people. You're a doer.
Thank you.
Execute. You think about it. You whiteboard it. You execute. You figure out what went wrong. You pivot. You do all the things you're supposed to do. So tell us, Cody Human, what are you doing right now? What's happening?
Well, thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate it. I love what you're doing as well. Read
Thank
the
you.
tape.
Appreciate it.
Make it a podcast. You told me you were going to do this, so it's. I was honored for you to ask me to come on.
We're honored that you're here, for heaven's sake. So.
Well, I definitely appreciate it.
Of course.
It's been definitely a journey. And might I add that you're definitely my favorite mentor I've ever had.
Wow.
You know.
My gosh, well, you've only known one, but I'm kidding.
Well,
kidding.
I've had some. I've had good and bad. Good and bad. So
That's very nice of you to say that. Thank you.
You're a personable person.
Mm-hmm.
You care, passionate, and you have the results to back up what it is you're saying, which is like huge for me.
Wow. Thank you.
I've been a part of mentorships before where they're smoking mirrors, you know, and you see a lot of that
Sure.
on today's day and age of just online.
Mm-hmm.
Selling the lifestyle, selling the stuff online, and then selling mentorships, right?
Sure.
I don't even want to say what you charge for mentorship because it would probably blow people's minds. I mean, it's such a small fee or amount comparative to like what people online charge that don't have a fraction of your experience or your results. So when I first heard you say it, I was just like, whoa, like, is it, that's crazy to me that it would be that small. But that just showed me right away, like, okay, you're doing it really out of the kindness of your heart to just help people. You're passionate
Thank
about
you.
it.
Yeah, it's important to me. It's like important for a legacy. I've said this before, like I feel like if I can open doors or windows for people, and, I hear years later people say, hey, you changed my life. It's just like, that's payment. It's my favorite part. So thank you for saying that. Yeah. I knew that I needed to charge something so somebody was like, willing to do it
for free.
Right, because otherwise you do it for free. It's like it's free. So like, what do I do? And what it is, what is
it won't work.
It won't work. So there had to be some de minimis charge so that it was like a functional, relationship. Like, hey, I'm paying for this, regardless of how de minimis it was, but still I'm paying for it. I'm showing up. I'm committed. So I mean, that was really like my motivation to try that.
It's definitely something I've noticed about you because everywhere we go, everyone knows you. Everyone speaks extremely high of you.
I mean, everyone knows me in every restaurant, so because I keep eating.
Gyms too. The gym too. We go to the gym to train. Shout out to Alpha.
There you go.
Alpha?
Live Alpha.
Live Alpha.
I would say Live Alpha. Live Alpha. Yeah.
I messed that up too. That's why I asked.
Many times.
Right in Newport, Costa Mesa, right there.
Yeah, it was instrumental in creating that too. Yeah. It's just,
right when
fun.
I walked in, the owner, Paco.
Yeah.
He said, anything for Mike. He was like, if it wasn't for Mike, I wouldn't even have this building.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, wow. It's just little things like that you pick up on and you start to realize like, oh, this guy's the real deal.
Thank you.
And doing it for all the right reasons.
Thank you. When I don't feel good about myself, I'm just going to call you. This is better.
Let me know. I'm here for you.
I appreciate it. So where are you going? What's going on? Because the last time we spoke, you were in a certain space. You're potentially, pivoting or adding to your space, or so. What's going on there?
So, I think life's all about growth, the evolution, knowing when to pivot, knowing when to move forward. Right? It's not really because I had a holdup of just feeling like I was quitting or giving up on something, which becomes like a mental block in your head where you start to think, well, no, I have to stick it out. I have to push through. I have to, I don't want to be a quitter. I don't want to just give up. I want to see the vision through. But sometimes in life you get enough signs and the passion changes,
Sure. You grow.
Yeah, your chosen path,
Right.
it alters. And not to say that it wasn't what you thought it would be, but for me, it's not all for nothing, right? Because I've been gaining experience and learning lessons all the way through.
Sure.
So I'll take that and move on and move forward with that. But yeah, I've been in the cannabis industry for about 9 years now. Out
So you're
here in
very
California.
experienced for
Yeah,
people in the cannabis business. Yeah.
absolutely. Started a brand in 2015 out here in LA, called Blackleaf,
Mm-hmm.
and just since then it's changed so much. Everything about it changed so much. I like how you call it the vice business and how it's a necessary business, but it's a different business.
Well, I call it vice business because I like vices are like
Yeah.
gambling or alcohol or, I mean, I really shouldn't say that.
No, but
But
it's
I mean,
you're
there's always a lot of money in that because that's what people want. But it's can lead to abuse, whatever.
yeah.
We always call it vice because it can always lead to abuse. Can it be done responsibly? Is responsibility or responsible behavior, is it even possible? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you would know better than I would. So I just think it's like always leads to potential abuse sometimes not. And what is that? What's the fine line? Does the industry have to is it responsible for that? I mean, it's just an interesting sort of cultural phenomena, or also, ethics, morality, on and on. So anyway.
Just studying myself as a consumer for a while, I didn't, my 20s, I didn't really pay it much mind, and I was what you would probably consider a heavy user, but a very functional user, right? Where I could smoke and I could still do a lot of stuff, and by society standards was still pretty successful. But when you want growth and you want to break through to new areas and new levels of your life, you realize it comes with sacrifice.
Sure.
And just from the time perspective alone of what I was using to, prepare, smoke, and then the after, part of the whole process, when you count up all that time, you're thinking 4 or 5 hours a day.
Was it habitual behavior, or do you feel like it was necessary for your functioning?
No,
Like,
it was an addiction.
okay, it was an
For
addiction.
sure, it was an addiction. Like you say, it's a vice, right? It's a vice. Like, it's would you learn at a certain age to not deal with your emotions, you're probably going to use a vice or something that you're going to just go to that and use that instead, right?
So to suppress whatever you
Exactly.
wanted to talk about, I
Numb
want to put it away.
yourself, all that. And
Sure.
I would always justify it. I'm like, oh, it's just weed. Like I'm not on pills. I'm not, raging alcoholic.
Sure.
I'm not on hard drugs. Just weed. Like it could be worse, right?
You're right. I mean, have you ever
Yeah.
seen anybody on weed actually do something terrible?
No,
Versus
no.
other-
And I'm a
other drugs?
proponent. So, and we've
Not
talked
that I'm a
about.
proponent of that,
Right.
but I'm just saying you don't see those behaviors.
I agree, and we've talked about this a lot. I'm a proponent for cannabis, 100%, but for medicinal. I think recreational can be taken out of context. We talk about drinking as well.
Sure.
Plenty successful people that will have a drink at night. Maybe yourself will have
Yeah,
a drink at night.
I drink.
And it's fine. You can still get success. You can still be fine. But that's if you're a person that can moderate. If you're not
Sure.
able to moderate very well, I think at some point you got to keep it real with yourself and know when it's abuse.
Sure.
When you're selling yourself short. If you got to wake up and have a drink or wake up and smoke a joint just to get your day going, that's when I think it starts to become abuse. I've always had a hard time being like, oh, I just smoke one joint at night. That would always lead me to be like, oh, now I'm smoking in the morning, now I'm smoking midday, and I'm smoking at night. And it becomes like a burden. It becomes like, a habit that's hard to keep up with, just from the time perspective alone. So what happened with me is in my 20s, it was fine. And then in my 30s, I started getting affected more physically by it. Lungs spitting up stuff, getting sick a lot, things
Wow.
like that, where I realize, I can't, it's not sustainable. I'm not going to be able to keep living my life. And I don't want to be 50 years old on an oxygen tank, right?
Right.
So or some serious medical problems. So for me, it's like, okay, if I'm having a hard time moderating, I just have to abstain.
It's still smoking. You're still,
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
just as bad
Which
as
we
cigarettes.
can all agree is
right.
not healthy
No.
at all.
That we
for
can agree
anyone.
with.
So
Yes.
I wasn't like an edible guy. I'm not like a tincture guy. I've never been even like a vape pen guy. It's always joints for me. I would roll joints, smoke joints, and I'm a very functional smoker when it comes to marijuana. Like I could probably smoke and do this or do a lot of things, go to the gym. I would still do all those things, right? But not to the level that I wanted to, and not I wasn't able to operate at.
How long were you feeling like that? Like for a long time before you stopped it, or was it like a?
Probably 5 years.
So
4 or
for
5
five
years.
years, you literally felt like you were
And I
being
think it comes
destructive.
down to business success because I've always been into personal development. I've always liked, growth environments, and just try to change my environment so that I could pursue more. I've been to Tony Robbins Business Mastery 5 days. Like I would do like stuff like that and just force myself to do it. And I would be sober. And then I would see myself like crushing it. And I'm like, damn, this is me sober. Like there's no comparison. I'm firing off 7 days a week. Like even right now, I'm probably on 5 hours of sleep. I'm up at 5 a.m. I'm at the gym by 7. I already did 2 rounds in the gym today.
2
Meditated,
rounds.
pray.
Wow.
I do one at home. I do like
Okay.
a burpee routine. Just gets oxygen to the brain, gets my blood flowing, and
So you're really disciplined.
yeah, it's like a totally different person almost. And you start to realize like, well, if that's me fully sober, and I think sobriety is a superpower. Like I'm fully sober. I don't do nicotine. I have nothing. No vices at all. Like no
Wow.
pornography, nothing.
So you feel that these distractions, all these distractions, are limiting your personal growth, your capability, your business growth, your social growth. Everything was being limited by you being distracted from what the final goal is.
Correct.
Another thing I want to ask you is like you talk about these mentors, like you go to I'm not going to say bad or good about Tony Robbins or all these other people. I mean, coaching space, mentoring space.
We'll talk about Tony.
Yeah. No, I'm going to get in trouble. But it's always interesting to me. Do you feel like mentorship or coaching is like so like my belief system in this space, for lack of a description, is just so granular. Like who's that person? Like it's not about being aspirational. I think like everyone in this space is like, look at me, I'm so great, and then but what's the roadmap versus like what's your roadmap? What do you need to do? Who are you? What makes you special? What's your inner genius? What can't you have in your life? So the fact that you identified this early on is like, it's just really almost like mentorship is almost like a guiding person. It's almost rather than like do this, like what do you think? I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
When you don't grow up with it, you gotta go find it. And you're not always gonna find what you need. You might find what you don't need, and then that now, right? But the thing about Tony Robbins is he is the originator. He got taught by Jim Rohn, which I think Jim Rohn was way ahead of his time. And all of his content material, it's general life advice that applies to everybody. And what Tony's done is he has created curriculums and things that goes over each part of business in the business mastery, right? So for any business it would apply to, right?
Sure.
And he talks about techniques and things that I wouldn't call them life hacks, but it's like most people don't know these things. Most people aren't talking about these things. And then the way he's able to hack your state by being in these big groups and a big convention center, right? Every 20 minutes you're jumping up and down, high-fiving each other, hugging each other. He knows how to break the state.
So you
and
think
keep
that
you
sense of
locked
community
in. Somewhat. It's a lot of things in one. It's kind of tough to explain. But that was my first experience where I was like, whoa, these are number one, really high achievers in here. Number two, anytime I'm ready to yawn, he breaks the state, like automatic, like he already knew that was happening.
Engagement.
To everyone. Exactly.
Keeps you focused.
And then
it's not boring.
Exactly.
He's not lecturing.
And I'm talking from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., no breaks.
Wow.
No lunch break, nothing. Like they bring apples and bananas and
I have to
like you can go out if you want, obviously,
right.
But it keeps going, and it's just like the stuff he's talking about, he's perfected for the last 40, 45 years.
Sure.
So
he's a very charismatic individual.
Yeah, he's like 6'5", guy's
Right.
huge, right?
Right.
And it just comes out clapping sticks and like it just like really it's like I feel like it just breaks you of your patterns, and like some people need a big mental shift, and it does that. And it's also like a physical shift because like I said, he'll have you doing a lot of things that are uncomfortable. You're getting in groups with all strangers, you're having to figure out problems and solutions, and you're having to go on stage and present it. It was just like a crash course of stuff that I would have never done otherwise. And I think that from there, that got me back into reading. That got me to pay more attention to my habits, my time, just everything. And I would compare it kind of back to that time of 5 days when I was fully sober. Literally would just go back to my hotel, sleep, wake up, go right back. And
So experiencing life without the vice
yeah,
was the breaking of this pattern. I'm like, I need to do this.
it
Did you
just
go
showed
right?
me. It just showed me the difference of how I am on it and off it. A lot of people would be like, well, I smoke, it makes me more creative, or I smoke, it helps my anxiety, or I smoke, it helps,
Sure.
you know,
We talked about it, coaching you or
which seems,
mentoring you. We talked about like, when you were in the space, this is you're an expert in the space. Why don't you just focus on the positives? There are all these elements that are positive. There's people elderly where they have glaucoma or they have massive anxiety issues, or there are things or medicinal uses for the product that clearly are, health related and help people, not as a vice or like get me through my day, or I want to numb myself, or I'm not being the best person I can be, or why do I need this? Like you weren't using it for health reasons, but there are
no,
reasons. And I was just saying,
it's actually destroying my health.
why don't we focus, on those things? But, obviously you're looking to completely be out of space that you feel has been destructive to you.
It's not that it's been destructive. It's just that I think my capability and potential could be more valued in another area, another industry, another set of circumstances,
Sure.
right? I just don't like the problem with the cannabis space for me per se is that it's culture driven, right? So
Sure.
if it's not for the culture, they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to deal with it.
And why is that? That's an
It's
interesting.
kind of like skateboarding and surfing and like music or whatever. Like when you get successful, you're a sellout.
Wow.
And it's just very juvenile. So when you
wait a second. Look, you get successful in certain industries, you're a sellout because
Right.
you're not in the culture. You're not in the.
you're not underground anymore.
So the very nature. So the cannabis business is still considered an underground business, even though it's illegal in a lot of states.
Definitely.
Wow.
Definitely.
So that's the culture.
It's very
still.
gray area. It's still federally illegal. Think about it. So it's very. That's another big thing. It's a holdup, right? Like, I deal with pages getting deleted all the time. Like, we deal with a lot of problems when it comes to marketing, right? So, and that's part of why we're here today. You have to start to master that and become somewhat of a guerrilla marketer and learn how to build community and do something for people in an unorthodox way so that it doesn't get deplatformed or censored or
But
taken off.
I mean, certainly not a proponent of like going into your space. I mean, and to learn like sort of this ability to, as you would say, guerrilla market or pivot rapidly or read the tape. I always talk about read the tape. So, I mean, it's giving you acute senses of, how do I get around something or how do I do something legal, proper, where I'm always getting shut down because there are certain issues. So, I mean, it's giving you a huge background in business, marketing, branding. I mean, as far as how do I do something. You're where you're morphing into what you want to do. It's that has clearly been helpful to you. I mean, in terms of doing this.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of my personal reason of why I want to apply my talents and efforts to other things as well, because I feel like I've been boxed in and it's like all I've known and all I've done, even in a sense of like who I know, right? And it's like, for instance, the reason I pivoted and started a podcast with it was that exact reason what you're saying. I had to figure something out, how to stand out, how to create a community, how to get around all these limitations and underground world of knowing anyone's founder story, knowing the history of the plant or where it comes from, knowing any who's behind these brands that are putting out all this product. There's disconnect from consumer to creator. There's a big disconnect there, and that's why we started our podcast called First Smoke of the Day. And
that's quite successful.
Yeah. So and that's been great. I love that I did that journey. It bothers me that, like, for instance, I couldn't have you on that podcast. So it's like, so should I not be able to do that? Like, and then why is it? It's like, oh, because you don't smoke, you're not for the culture. They have terms like they would call you a Chad. Like, oh, he's a Chad, which means a corporate guy.
Oh, there you go.
It's just kid shit. at
Right.
the end of the day. Excuse my language, but
That's awesome.
yeah, and it's aggravating at some point because I want to do what I want to do without being boxed in. So
So you want to celebrate life without a vice. You want to celebrate without having to numb yourself. You want to celebrate being the best you can be. You don't want to take away anything from the space where there was medicinal or actual usage for helping people. You just don't. You feel in your mind that this was replacing your abilities and your functioning capabilities of being the best you can be, which is an amazing breakthrough for you, and it's awesome knowing who you are and getting to this place. I mean, I congratulate you for that. That's and thank you for being so honest. I mean, not everyone's so honest about this, so this is important. I appreciate that. I know it's hard to do these things, so thank you. Thank you for sharing, listeners, to what you do, what your journey is. So that's awesome. So
yeah, and it's like I'm not mad or hate it or any of those things. It's just a personal preference when if I'm not consuming, why should I be putting out product and then pushing out the messaging of consuming, right?
hmm
So I have to be honest, and I'm always honest with my audience. They know even me having a brand and a podcast right now that's active right now that I'm not consuming. They know that. I tell them that. I'm very vulnerable, very authentic. I have to keep it real because that's how you build a community. That's how you
Sure,
connect with people in the first place.
sure.
I'm not good at like coming off as a phony or a fake or even like to the sense of like if I'm at an event and someone's like, hey, you should try this. Like I need to be able to be honest and be like, oh no, I'm not smoking right now. I don't want to be like, and then not inhale and like you start to feel crazy in your mind, if you live like that. So I'm just very open and upfront and honest about everything I have going on because it just allows me to be me and
Well, being authentic is a critical piece of any business or critical piece of any narrative or critical piece of you moving forward or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, whether it be socially, whether it be in business, whether it be whatever you're doing. If you're not honest, then it doesn't work. Eventually people, as they say, the camera reads everything. So
yeah.
if you're not honest or the tape reads everything, you have to do that. So let's talk about something, not that isn't positive. Let's talk about like positive stuff now.
Absolutely.
Since I'm coaching you right now,
And
let's talk about what else are we doing? Where are we going? What's happening? What are you spending all your time on right now?
so I've still been active in my brands now, so
Mm.
it's definitely still taking up some time. I'm going to I'm in real estate. I do real estate investment. I have about 12 doors, rental portfolio, and
That's
then we do
great.
fix and flip properties as well. I have
Great.
a great partner in that. He has his own company. I have my own company. We kind of like somewhat collab, but he is a great figure in my life, been like a somewhat of an older brother almost become. I've known him since like 21. I'm 36 now.
hmm
So, and he started wholesaling and he does fix and flips. And then he has a construction company as well. So they do renovation and they do a great job. He can do a full reno in 30 to 60 days to the stud. So
So you're renting houses out. You're trying to acquire a real estate portfolio. Is a certain area of the country you're doing it
I
in?
want to continue to work on affordable housing solutions.
Okay. Well, that's great.
So my best property is a fourplex and it's Section 8.
Okay.
And I've noticed like
Here in
just
California?
no in Florida.
In
This is
Florida.
all in Central Florida. I'm from Florida,
Oh, good for you.
Orlando, Florida, Central Florida area. He's in Tampa, so it's been good. The market's good there. My best property is a Section 8 property, and it just it's an area that I know is not going anywhere, and it's an area that feels good when you can buy a property, fix it up, and then talk to the tenants, help them out, kind of in the sense of, hey, this is wrong, that's wrong. You come in, you make it better. They're appreciative, and you continue moving forward. It's
So
the
that's a
least
passion.
problems that I've dealt with out of all the other properties, right? And all the other properties are like maybe a notch up, like more middle class type properties, single family, a few multifamily, stuff like that. So I know moving forward, I want to do more Section 8 housing. And then also I want to start working on tiny home communities and
That's
develop,
great.
because I think I want to get more innovative with the solutions for that. You see these houses being started to be 3D printed
Sure.
and all these things, right? So I want to explore more of that and just be able to offer some solutions for what's going on in the real estate
Is
market.
that for, in a sense, for affordable housing that you've done tiny housing, or is it more of a larger plan that how are we going to provide housing for everyone and
Exactly.
efficiency. Are you really into the green movement? Do you like that? It's like not having a larger footprint. Is that something that's important to you?
I don't think I'm driven by that as much. I'm just more driven by what do people do that can't afford a $500,000 house right now?
Sure.
You know,
It's getting worse.
what's the solution here?
Well,
Because like you said, it is getting worse, you know, and they're going to cut rates here soon again. Prices will probably go back up. That's even more, you know, and that's what seems to continue to happen. So, what are families going to do? What are individuals going to do? I'm 36 years old. I'm single, no kids. It's hard for me, and I'm not a lower net worth individual. So it's kind of interesting to know what does the future hold. Like, what, you know, am I going to be paying $10,000 a month in rent? You know, it doesn't really doesn't add up. I don't know how a lot of people are doing it even right now. So in 5 years from now, I really won't know what are families going to do. What are people going to do? Are people just going to be homeless? Are they going to like,
this is great, Cody.
so
I mean, this is like important stuff. I mean, taking your skill sets on working in an industry that was half legal, half not, taking your skill sets of having to read the tape, taking your skill sets and cultural issues and, how do you break through that? I mean, these are valuable skill sets to a problem that, is a massive problem in the United States right now and probably the world of affordable housing, how much housing, footprint issues. There's all this stuff going on with 3D printed houses. Actually, the company that I own and run, we had a listing out in the desert about 3D printing. So I have some familiarity and maybe very much the future because the efficiency, the capability, all sorts of things associated with it. So this is great that you're taking those skill sets and actually not only benefiting it's a business. Obviously, you make money doing it, but you're also benefiting society and benefiting people. So that's great. It must feel really good. That's where you feel really good when you see that, I'm sure.
I run off passion and purpose. And when I start feeling the lack of, I think I just start looking around. And I've kind of had the problem where, it's an entrepreneurial spirit. I'll start something, I launch it. I'm a great launcher of things. I'm a great starter of things. But to keep it running it and managing it for a long period of time, that's where I start to fall short.
Well, you're this is an interesting thing. The skill sets of similar to things that I like to do. So you're the startup guy. So you're able to capture lots of people, lots of personalities. You're able to get them together, focus on an idea, get the right teams together, and execute. It's really the most difficult things to do. How many times do I get people walk up to me and say, how do you start? I'm like, well, you put one foot in front of the other. You do that already. So then it's really the running of the operation, the day-to-day management, versus, and we've talked about that, it's like when people are running all of this, like, how do you not know what to do? It's like you get frustrated. Like, I got you all here, we're rolling, things are great, and all of a sudden, like, why am I cleaning up this obvious issue, or why am I cleaning up this obvious issue? So we've talked about that. It's really two separate skill sets, and there's really the best thing to do is get the right person to run the day to day because they are into that. They're really able to do that, but you're still setting the narrative. You're still setting the tone. That startup guy is still necessary always, even when it's a mature business, because the mature businesses are the ones that end up going down unless the startup guy is not sitting there looking at what are the potential issues moving forward or how do I change. And we've talked about this before too. Like when you're at your very highest is exactly when you change. When you're like things couldn't be better. It's like you got to figure out like what's next, what's going to happen, where are we going? So, all right, very cool. So what else are you doing?
There's a few things. I'm doing a lot of content, right? So I'm working on my personal brand. I think right now it's an interesting time. Well, I've spoke to you about this as well, where personal brand is everything. It's the new business card. And it's probably why we're sitting here today.
I love that. Can I borrow that? The new business card, personal brand. I like that.
Because people, what's your Instagram? And then I'll make my judgment off you based off that. Right? Is this guy a real person? Is he full of shit or full of crap?
That's right. You can say that. That's not a swear anymore.
Is he skilled? Do I like him? Because you have to like them, right? If you don't,
but how do you judge that on a two-dimensional product? I mean, that's interesting to me.
You watch their content through their story and through their post, and you begin to build rapport in a relationship. It's a new way of doing things, right? Like we're
Do you
going
feel
full
after
digital
you
now.
see that, do you feel like when you meet them in person, is it different? Do you change your opinion or
Not the
no?
right people. Not the right people. I
Wow.
think that an authentic person and a real person is the same way online as he would be in person.
Really? That's interesting.
I think that some people put on a show. You know, there's like the YouTubers out there that'll be like, "Hey guys," and then you meet them, they're like, "Hey, what's up?" You know, and it's like, "Whoa, this person's totally different." And
Never
you
meet
know,
your heroes.
real life, exactly. But it doesn't. It's not. That's not standard for the status quo now. I think we're moving forward into a time and place where transparency is everything, being authentic is
agree with that.
everything, building rapport and relationships with a large number of people is everything, because it's not physical anymore. That's why retail is dying, because it's just not sustainable. You know, there's not enough people walking by anymore to just come in, right?
Sure.
So it's all online, and now the only way you're going to
Well,
reach.
it's interesting you say that, but retail isn't dying where there is an interaction or there is an experiential thing. So some retail, like certainly in the luxury sector, is like doing better than ever in some ways, although just recently it's not. But it's all experiential. You know, you have all this service, and you have all the product, like all the packaging. You know, there's all this going on. But it is interesting. You're right.
It's shifting. I should have said shifting.
Sure,
For sure. So I think that personal brand is just, you have to have it now. You know, an example I can use is that when I say Tesla, who do you think of? What do you think of?
Elon, 100%.
When I say Amazon,
Jeff Bezos.
when I say Berkshire Hathaway.
Warren Buffett.
So these
This is
guys
great.
have had
I
personal brands for
I
a
don't have
very
to
long
mention
time.
yet. I passed.
Exactly. So you know, Microsoft, Bill Gates, right? These guys have had personal brand for quite a long time, and then you see it even with actors and in the entertainment space as well, right?
You're identifying a really interesting thing. You identify something I always say to people, that the leader, okay, it's personal brand, however you want to look at, is mandatory. They're able to deliver. They may be a disaster as far as anything of running the business, but they have to be the leader as far as delivering that narrative. What are you doing? How are you doing it? And that's where you're talking about. These most successful companies have that. It's hard to morph off of that. It's hard to have that brand. It's a personal brand, to make that brand into sustainable without you, isn't it? Is Microsoft obviously massive, capable, but you still think of Bill Gates, not the existing chairman.
Correct.
And the existing chairman's a brilliant guy and has taken Microsoft, one can argue, further than Gates, but even though he's the original, I mean, people can argue both ways. I'm not going to.
People just don't know him.
Right.
And
So
that's the disconnect now with the consumer, because consumers don't trust brands anymore. They trust people. So if there's no people behind it, like when I buy eggs, I buy the eggs with the family on there.
really, so
I don't buy just a brand on there anymore, right? Like, so it goes all the way down to how people are buying right now, how consumers are deciding what they're going to buy, because we're in a day and age of, we know so much more now that the level of trust has to be much higher than it used to be. It used to be like, oh, these are eggs, they look good, perfect, no problem. Now it's like, are they organic? Are they pasture raised? Are they
massive.
cage free? Are they, you know, and it just goes on and on and on. Are they antibiotic free?
basically everything you do all day long is brand related. Like, what am I buying? Who am I talking to? So you're really actually right. You're very right. You know, the question is, how do you craft that? What do you do? What's the future? So what's your brand, Cody?
So, you know, moving forward, my brand is Cody Human.
Okay.
Right. And the reason is, and I was just telling my videographer Josh this before, is that, like, you know, let's say I have a nickname or something based around just the cannabis space. Well, if I move on from the cannabis space or develop new interests and things outside of it, I now have to change my brand. So the whole point of having the personal brand is you.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything you're involved in, everything you like to do. It's your lifestyle. It's your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you build businesses and brand around that. And then they know that's from you. that's yours.
So Cody Human is a brand, and you
Correct.
want to do multiple things that benefit society, benefit the future, benefit the things that you're talking about, benefiting others in terms of branding, understanding how to do that. So this is your future. This is where you want to be.
Correct.
So what are you doing? How are you creating
So
this?
right now with the real estate, it's Top Home Offer. That's our brand for real estate. You know, it's fix and flips. We do wholesale deals.
But
right?
your name and brand and visual is on top, all over this. Top
Yes,
Home
me and my partner.
Okay.
I have a partner with this as well. We also are obviously building a rental portfolio, right? I have First Smoke of the Day, which is my cannabis podcast, media platform, media outlet that I've been very active in doing. I've been building that for the last 3.5 years. And then I have a cannabis brand as well called Packgods. And that is, I offer flour, pre-rolls, stuff like that. And I'm in California dispensaries, probably 60 to 70 dispensaries, maybe a few more right now, all across the state of California. So I've been actively running those. My transition and my pivots have just come over probably the last 2, 3, 4 months.
Okay.
So I'm leewaying into new things and new beginnings, right? I definitely want to be more active and involved in real estate, the things I discussed.
Sure.
And then I'm just gonna build a community around myself. You know, I want to help people. I want to help people get sober that want to get sober. I want to help people get their habits and their routine in a better direction. I've always hired coaches in anything I do.
You got a perfect name for humanity, Cody Human. I mean, basically what you're saying here is your brand is humanity. Your brand is bettering humanity. Your brand is what can I do to fix things.
To put it short, is moving forward, I just want to help people. You know,
Right.
the same way I've been helped, right? And it's like you said, it's one of the most rewarding things, and
Sure.
and it's something of growth as well. You know, you get a lot of passion, a lot of purpose from it, and then you grow from it a lot as well because you learn at such a more rapid rate. The more people you help, the more successful you'll be. I think most successful people know that.
Yes.
You know, especially if you can change the trajectory.
Can you help the wrong people sometimes?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. So do you decide from, you're talking earlier about the digital life, or your personal brand is your, who you are, your branding. So you're making those decisions and who to help on that digital brand?
I mean, I think you build a community and it's a sense of commonality, and everybody's looking for that, especially after COVID. You know, that, it's probably we're probably at the lowest point of social interactions in all of human existence right now. So the place to connect is online. And the way people are doing that is through content. And that's the same way we connected, right? Like I saw
Sure.
that you were into working out and all these things. So I reached out to you, cold DM. Hey, Mike, this is who I am. This is what I
Sure.
want to do. Can we get together? You called me, and then we set the date, and then we shot a video, and did YouTube.
That's fine.
And, and
You worked out with me.
yeah, and worked out, right?
Right.
And so we call that Voices of Visionary. So I'm going to take that now to the next level and continue doing that as
I like
well
that.
with people like yourself. And not your traditional podcast where we're kind of just sitting down, because I've done quite a few of these. I like it to be involved. I like it to be immersed into, hey, what's your passion? What's your craft? What's your purpose? Let me dive into your world and feed off that, and then introduce it to my community that I'm building here.
Yeah, well, you're natural at that. It was actually when we did that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about, I love this humanistic approach. You want to help people. You are successful in multiple industries. But, there is obviously, you need to eat.
Right.
And you want a beautiful home. You probably want a family at some point, and you need savings and all these things. So there's got to be some element to this where it's a business. So let's talk about that. Like, how are you monetizing all of these great ideas? What are you doing?
Well, so with a personal brand, there's multiple ways to monetize. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where people don't, when's the last time you went to a free concert or a free show or anything free? People don't really show up for
Just
it.
Costco and the samples.
Yeah.
But I guess I paid for that.
Yeah. So you've got a membership, right? So,
Right.
So there you go. That's one way to monetize is a membership,
Right.
A monthly membership, a yearly membership, whatever it ends up being. There's things like Patreon and other paywalls where you can basically create groups, and even if you just have one live call a week with a Q&A on there, you can charge to have people on there because you're bringing in your resources, you're bringing in your network, you're sharing all your experiences, and you're helping them plug and play in areas that Otherwise, probably would have took them years to figure out.
Okay.
So that's one way. Another way is what we do for our podcast now, brand deals, advertising, sponsorships. People, especially corporations right now, more than ever, need more eyes and ears on their products. And they need people that people trust to put those products out in front of other people, right? So if you have an authentic community and an authentic following, brands want to pay you to put out
Do you
their
reach out
products
to
and
these brands,
services.
or they reach out to you?
It can go both ways.
Okay.
It can go both ways. I mean, if you use something and you're a big proponent for it, yeah, you definitely reach out, But at the same time, you'll start getting inquiries too. The bigger your audience gets, right? On YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. These are the way all these influencers, are making so much money. It's not from getting views or people knowing them. It's from, ad placement and them using their products and promoting.
So it comes
right?
down from a personal brand. It comes down to eyeballs. It's always the same, isn't it? How
But
many
you
eyeballs?
can go a level further, right? Like we could get together and I could say, Mike, my personal brand's killing it in these areas. Let's launch this product. And you might say, let's look at the numbers. Let's do some research. And then, okay, you have this many subscribers. This many people would want to buy it. Okay, let's launch the product. Or we could launch a service, right? Either way, that's another way to monetize based off of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing entrepreneurial capability compared to not that long ago,
With
as far as
minimal overhead.
Right, instant product development. All these drops, whether it be clothing or supplements, or whatever. Instantaneous manufacturing. Like, is this going to work? How many people are buying this and then making those deliveries? Yeah, it's changed dramatically. The world has changed versus like making these bets, massive bets on inventory or massive bets on direction. But still, all in all, it takes, sort of
It takes time to build up the audience.
Yeah, but it also takes vision. It also takes capability of seeing. It also takes that prescient capability that you have. Like, you're not just like launching into something without like thinking about like, this is really needed and it's your specific narrative. And you're able to do that. You're very capable in doing that. So it's like, granted, it's numbers, but it's also, what do people want to see? Like, you're out and about and you're experiencing life and you're experiencing conversations, even driving here today or whatever happened today, like something triggered something in your mind, or even this conversation now, or people you're meeting, like, hey, I wonder if this will work. I wonder if this will work. Your mind is always working, but it still takes that startup guy. It still takes that guy to look at things and say, hey, where do I want to go? How do I monetize this? And when I'm monetizing, I'm helping others. So that's interesting.
Yeah, you have to get past what I think holds most people back from doing content and why there's still opportunity there is fear of judgment. You have to get past the fear of judgment. And for younger people, it's much harder than when you're older, because when you get older, I think that you just care way less about what people think.
You're talking with the number one thing that I have to coach people for. It's like they have fear of, you can say fear of judgment, fear of success, fear of failure, fear of this, fear of that. And fear of judgment, it's like, what do people think about you, is paralyzing to so many people. And if you can get over that, obviously, I can easily say I don't fear that. But the same token, I don't want to say to somebody like you're a bad person. Like, that's important to me. But I mean, I don't care what they think overall. Like, whatever. But I think that's critical you say that, because if you get over that piece, the sky's the limit. Be a good person. I'm not saying
Right.
you don't want to be judged. How do I say that in the right way? I mean, I don't want you to be a bad person. I don't care. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's sociopathic versus like, I want to be judged for being a good person, for doing the right thing, but in fear of judgment, whether I was a failure or not, or what my personality is, or I pissed somebody off. Yeah, you're right. 100%. So you've gotten over that. You have no fear of judgment.
Yeah, I'm way past that for sure.
That's great.
And I think it's like going to the gym, right? You get your reps up and then you start to gain more confidence.
Sure.
Confidence is just doing what you say you're going to do.
Well, like, I have a lot of people, I know a lot of fitness influencers. Fitness is a big part of my life. I always think it's really important to, for success, for the discipline. But the thing, it's like sports or working out. I mean, it's so, there's nothing gray about it. I mean, performance is always associated with discipline. So if you're working out every day, if you're eating right, if you're going to be the best you can be. It's that discipline. So you can actually see a result. versus business where you can do everything right. You can have the right education, you can have the right product, and all of a sudden, like, it falls flat. So, but it comes down to the same thing. I say this over and over again. You can have this amazing team and an absolutely crappy product, like it's just useless, or even a service, but it still succeeds because of what? You would say
The
personal
people.
brand,
Yeah,
people,
the
right?
people. Which the thing about personal brand, and I think that hasn't clicked for a lot of people, is that it's a lifelong brand. Your name's always going to be your brand. So it doesn't matter if I'm in cannabis now and then I end up way down the road in tech or something, right?
Sure.
It's still me. And if people trust me, then people are going to trust the product or the service. They're going to be curious, and then my community will most likely try it out at the minimum, right?
Sure.
So that's why you see all these big names get paid so much money to launch a product or launch a service or get involved with other things outside of their zone of genius.
But some of us have failed
For sure. And
royally.
it just shows you they did it for the money. Solely, probably, right? Like, they didn't really use the product. They didn't really think it was great. Like, it wasn't really a part of their life, So I think when there's that disconnect, and yeah, it does flop, it does fail.
Right, because I've seen a lot of that. And maybe you're right.
That's part of the reason why
So,
me being hyper aware of knowing I'm not smoking and I don't plan to start again for a very long time, if at all ever, just due to my own personal reasons, health, whatever, all these things, right? At some point, it's going to be inauthentic if that's my business.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, it will taper off and it will fall off. I mean, even to this point, right? Even in an immediate analyzation, you can tell.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people in your existing community that are feeling the same way you are. So maybe that community is just going to morph, or there's got to be some percentage of that community. It's like, hey, Cody's right. I really want to do this. I'm going to use this as a positive experience and move off of that. I mean, there's got to be some. Or you think that's it?
Well, no, no, absolutely not. I mean, it's going to continue to. The landscape's changing dramatically, and I think with legalization continues to roll out. I mean, we're in modern day prohibition for cannabis right now. It's global too. It's not just the U.S. It's literally everywhere. I was in Thailand. It's everywhere. There's shops everywhere. People don't even realize this. And the California influence even reigns over those shops. So California, I would say, is number one in the world for cannabis as far as influence and brands, and where the market has
California
really
does that
ignited a fire and created it, right?
A lot of different
fashion, music,
multiple products, yes,
clothing,
right? That lifestyle, that
absolutely.
Capability,
So, I think at some point you just gotta kind of analyze yourself and realize, like, all right, if I'm changing, then what I'm doing is changing, then people are going to be less interested in what I'm not doing anymore, specifically if you have a cannabis podcast and a cannabis brand and you're telling people, oh, I don't even smoke. But if you look at cannabis, a lot of the most successful people in cannabis don't smoke. So that was a really big mindset shift for me as well, where I realized, damn, all the guys that are really killing it don't even smoke. Why is that? And I started to explore that route a little bit more and realize that. Or if they do, it's very rarely, very, very seldom that they actually smoke. And so for the underground and the interculture, the hype scene, those guys are chads. Those guys are sellouts. Those guys are,
Does that come from that original
corporate, losers, right? But it's like, I want to be successful. Like, I want to change the course of my family's path. I want to be able to help more people. I want to, grow into having a family of my own, stability, security. I think when a man hits a certain age, desires shift. Things shift in your mind, and you start to value other things less.
Of course.
And other things more, right?
But you're always changing.
Right.
Every year as you get older, you're changing. No matter how old you are. I think that it's just experience.
Right.
The experience of life, experiencing more people, experiencing more challenges. You just, you start to learn different things, and so you change. It's always a moving thing. It's, I always say that, one of the tenets I have is, I learned that being a trader, it's like, people have this tendency to let things run, like they never give up on something that needs to be pivoted from. It's like a loser's a loser's a loser. Like, change your course. It's even in stock trading or in options trading, just very rapid decision-making process. People don't change. Do they change? I don't know what your experience is. People don't change. They do change, but usually some event happens or something happens. So it's true. It's like,
It takes a lot.
It takes a lot.
It takes a lot.
So
I
like
would say
reading
very, very small percentage changes. And to me, in my mind, you either evolve or die.
Sure. Well, that's the answer.
'Cause
Look at the stock market tells you this. Like, I've brought this up before. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is considered, the United States is considered the most important metric as far as the best companies or, capitalized companies, the brilliance, great products. When they first started today, there's not one company, although it was in the 1800s. So maybe I'm not being fair, but what does it say again? Nothing's forever. So if something's not forever, what does that tell you? That means you always have to change or morph or modify or, like I said earlier, like when you're at the top of your game, you have an idea. It's like right when, it's all clicking, it's clicking, it's clicking. What do you do? How do you fix it? There are very few people in the world are able to constantly stay on top. There are those people that constantly stay on top, generation after generation or a decade after decade. It's fascinating capability to do that. So,
I mean, yeah, it's constant innovation.
right. So, I'd like to talk, because I obviously mentor you and coach you. So ask me some questions, because I like that idea, because that's what, usually what you do is like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? If you want to, if you
Absolutely.
don't, So and maybe I'll answer wrong, or you can do something opposite, or I always say, I make the joke, it's like, just do everything opposite I tell you and you'll be fine. My favorite show is in Seinfeld.
Yeah. Something I struggle with is how to find your chosen path.
Mm-hmm.
How to know when this is your thing and you should pursue this thing. Even for me right now, pivoting, there's no answer. There's no, well,
Sure.
Just do this and you're going to be good. It's really an exploration. So how do you connect with passion and purpose and find your zone of genius, especially for the younger entrepreneurs? Because I think the common confusion is, and you can clarify on this, is people need to start 8 businesses to be successful, but I disagree. I think that you need to focus on one at a time, because it's really hard, even for me now, to juggle 2-3 projects, let alone 7 or 8.
Well, I mean, I think you figured it out for yourself in a lot of ways. Like, what are you good at? What is your capability? What's your lane? What is your inner genius? I mean, your inner genius is interacting with people. Your inner genius is capable of understanding trend lines. Your inner genius is, it's not like this project you have of Section 8 housing or affordable housing. It's not like you don't have experience. You're buying and selling homes. You're understanding the project. You understand the costs. How do I make money in this? How do I help people? So it's like you're going into this blindly. And you're passionate about it. And we just talked about it like 15 minutes ago, So how do you know? You know, because you wake up in the morning. I'm excited about the phone call. I'm excited, like, oh, what house is this, or what multi-unit is this, or can we build this, or you continue to focus on that, or you like the teams that you're creating, or you feel motivated in the morning. So how do you know? Are you capable of executing those decisions? Are you capable of executing that business? Have you have any experience in it? Are you do you have those skill sets? So I think you're pretty good at these pivots. Obviously, you're good at these pivots. You're thinking about it. So I think you it's a weird thing to say. It's like the old story is like, how do you know who you're supposed to marry? How do you know you're supposed to marry?
Yeah.
And I always say to people, I'm in a very successful marriage. I'm married for 37 years. And you know what? You just sort of know. Like, you just know. And I think what happens is what people make mistakes with is that they feel like they're on the track. Well, I have to be doing this right now. Or like, oh, I won't look successful if I'm not doing this, or I won't do this. So they have all these sort of constructs, constraints, or guardrails that create this situation where, they're forced into a place that they don't want to be, or they don't have passion about, or they don't have any skill sets. So, I mean, you're not doing that. You're like, I got skill sets here. You're doing that. So I think it's a feeling. I mean, I think it's, and as you said earlier, this entire podcast is about being honest and real and, being transparent. So you have to be that with others. You have to be that with who? yourself.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of, I'm really being helpful here, but I think that when you do all this processing, you kind of know. And also, I think that you need a team around you, or as honest as you are, you need people around you who are telling you the truth. Like people around you that are saying, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea. Or as we said earlier about pivoting, like I've tried this a couple times. I don't have the skill set. I probably should move past this. Or, something like that. So, yes, it is a feeling. It is, you just kind of know when you're clicking.
It's like
Don't
an
you
intuition.
know? Yeah. Don't you know when you're on the right? It's almost like that spine tingle. I got it.
Yep.
Don't you know when you see it, you feel it, you're doing it? Like, I got it. Doesn't that
So-
feel good?
It does. So what do you do when you have that feeling, but then it starts to change? And then how long do you let that go before you do decide to make a pivot? And the reason I ask is because I've been going back and forth about this in my mind for myself for some years now, at least 3, 4, 5 years, where industry changes. A lot of people in my industry feel like this, by the way. Things change, the landscape changes, the people in it change, the products change, the marketing changes,
Sure.
Everything changes, and it's not in a direction you really want to keep heading in. When do you know, like, when is too long to wait, and when is like too soon to wait?
Well, let's unpack that, okay? Because that's complex.
Yeah, it is.
So, what you're talking about is, I always put it this way: if the train is coming at you, are you going to stand in front of the train?
No.
Because guess what happened? It's not good.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of have to get on the train. So if the things are morphing away from your belief systems or your passion or your potential capabilities, well, that's time to pivot. Because I always say you don't want to step in front of that train. You want to get on the train, okay? And you want to step off the train when the train's slowing down and then get on another train. It's starting to be so.
No, I love that
train.
analogy.
So
that
that's,
explains it perfectly.
So yeah, like people make mistakes. There are very few people who, you describe some entrepreneurs who are unwilling to, they'll step in front of the train. And for whatever reason, they have the ability to literally, the train hits them and the train just moves out of the way. Very few. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but it takes like a certain genius to like literally see something that no one else saw. Like literally no one else saw that. And you may have that. And then that's fine. But remember, those probabilities are very slim. But it happens. It happens more than it doesn't sometimes. I think I'm sort of talking out both sides of my mouth, but I prefer from a less of a risk to not jump in front of that train. That's what I would prefer. If that helps
it makes
you.
sense. No,
So,
the train analogy makes sense because
Yeah.
even at the other end of the spectrum, train slowing down, how long are you going to ride it? It's almost like trends, right?
Sure.
Have to jump on the trend early, be an early adopter, because if you're too late, it's not going to hit the same, right? And then if you ride it too long,
Sure.
you've passed the point of climax. Now you're going downhill, and you look back and you're like, I should have got off back there.
Well, let's look at, I obviously always tell everybody to read the Wall Street Journal. It's not an advertiser, Wall Street Journal. And I like it because it really sort of tracks. I think everyone in the United States is looking at, in finance, is looking at this journal. It sort of gives a national narrative. And so I like it. In London, it would be the Financial Times or various places. But I think it's just sort of a national conversation. And, every single day there's talking about changes, or somebody jumped in front of the train, or someone didn't see the trend. So, recently Starbucks, it's just not doing well. They have the wrong guy, the wrong narrative. What do? And they hired a guy in my hometown, and suddenly the stock went up $20 billion, and everyone's talking about him, getting potential, whatever he got, $1.5 million a year, 10 million bonus. I mean, it's a public company, and
Yeah.
100 million, and he gets a private jet, whatever it is.
Yep,
So
I
was
saw that.
Starbucks correct in that decision process? Now, if you look at the European papers, I was friends who were from Europe recently, and they're fixated on the fact that he's flying a private jet to and from Seattle.
Yeah.
And how that's so not green. But the reality is that the shareholders and the narrative and his capability of turning around something else was so valuable that it was the best bet they could ever make. Would they spend, even if they pay him $100 million, whatever it is, I don't even remember. They just got a $20 billion market cap. So those investors were certainly rewarded.
Happy, yeah.
But why did it take so long? There's that train. Starbucks is an international company. I'm not going to make any comments, as far as I'm certainly not an insider, but like, what were they thinking? This morning, for example, there was an article. I love the product, Lululemon. Suddenly that stock is dropping. There's changes. There's these ripoffs. Why did it take so long? They were on top of the game. They were on top of the world. What was happening? They didn't see that. They needed to change it. Clothing is really treacherous, but you're talking about the same things. So things are always morphing, things are always changing. And reading these papers and getting motivation from like, wow, look at all of these things, or these massive organizations that just couldn't get out of their own way.
Helps you spot trends and patterns
Sure.
better.
It helps you, it helps you look at, looking at failures helps you. Because I always think great success is built on failures, but I also think if you look and study failures, what would I have not done? So it gives you an acceleration of potential like pitfalls. Like why would you have not changed? Like, was it obvious that Starbucks was going to do that because they kept increasing the price points? I mean, I'm just throwing. I have no idea.
Right.
Was that obvious?
Right.
Should they have changed it? Should they have price navigated that? Should they have changed their product offering? I don't know. I mean, we'll find out what the new chairman is. Let's see what he does. Let's see if he's got what. So far, he's got the brand recognition, his personal brand, as you said earlier, and that personal brand was worth $20 billion. Can you imagine getting to that place? His personal brand and then fixing it. So we'll see what happens.
And he comes from Chipotle, correct?
Yes. Yeah. He just, and they moved off of, they had a massive food safety problem. Mm-hmm. And how did he fix that? What did he do? What kind of teams did he do? And he fixed it. So now people eat there regularly. Their brand is building. The stock is up. I mean, on and on and on. So, it's a lot of pressure. I mean, it's a fun. I mean, I can't imagine. It must be great to be in his shoes, and the excitement and the passion. But I mean, that's a lot of pressure. Like suddenly you have to pull off another thing. Yeah, and now that's like a worldwide, international. That's a brand that's so ubiquitous all over the planet. Wherever you go,
it's everywhere.
Is it in Thailand?
Everywhere.
When you were just
from
there,
product to, I guess retail.
Sure.
Like where it's just it's massive. And my personal opinion is that it was built off of community, and they steered away from that.
Okay.
And that it's lacking there now. There's no community in those anymore. Everyone's went to like cafes and coffee shops like outside of that. There's better experiences elsewhere. And I don't think they dealt with that at this large of a scale until now. Like to me, Starbucks is like the McDonald's of coffee shops, which is just cheap. Even to the point of the coffee they give. I don't drink Starbucks coffee because it's just tastes like crap to me. I know better now, right? So I continually will raise my standards as a consumer, and I also want to be able to trust the brand as well. So I like to find other places that, I can get a higher quality product for probably around the same price.
So how would you fix? I mean, this is kind of a fun experiment. What would you do to fix Starbucks?
I would go back to being community driven. Focus on the community. Focus on the experience you get when you go in there. A lot of locations are dirty. The free Wi-Fi is just not enough anymore. It's almost attracted the wrong crowd now. So I think he's probably gonna have to close a lot of the locations and just focus on community, and then definitely focus on the quality of the products. 100%.
So what does this say? This is great that you're saying this to me, because what does this say about your skill set? What does this say about your capability? It's like you just said, literally the blueprint for your own businesses. Focus on community. That is your inner genius. Correct. I know how to create a community. I know how to create and keep it alive. I know how to keep it motivated. I know how to keep that product going. So that's literally, I mean, of course, in my opinion, I mean, and you may very well be right. I mean, maybe Starbucks is just missing that. I went to a Starbucks because I love the vibe. I went to Starbucks because I was working there. I went to Starbucks because this, and it's just lost. It's just like a cup of, like in your mind, it's like a cup of coffee. I just went through a drive-through. Like,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
And
So,
even the product's just gone downhill.
mhm.
I think it all comes, and this is kind of brings everything full circle right now. It all comes down to you being a consumer of your own stuff, and then going from there.
So if you can't, I owned a restaurant once, and
You told me about this.
yeah, and it was really interesting. And the chef that I hired, he had a comment, as I've lived with this comment, and I just love it. And he said, if you can't taste your own food, you better get out of the business. And I think it's like a line for everything. If you can't taste, or if you can't consume what you're trying to sell, if you can't,
How can you create?
how can you do anything if you can't like believe in it? So it's so true.
It's the reason I have an edge in all the brands and companies
I love it.
launched.
That's great.
Because I come from it.
That's
So
good.
I know what they want. There's no guessing. There's
I
no
love it.
disconnect. It needs to be connected. And it's like an ebbs and flow of it, that changes. So if you stop using your products or your services, you don't know how to change it when it changes.
Sure.
So there's no pivoting, and there's no, it's for some people, they make a lot of money and go do other stuff, or they just life changes and they just stay on the train and think that it's going to keep going forever, and starts to slow down. They wonder why. You just got to get back to your roots.
You know what to do. You just like the validation. There's nothing that you've
No,
said to
I
me.
like guidance. It's not validation. It's like reassurance
Sure.
from experienced people that I
Sure.
respect and admire, and am inspired by, because that then gives me the head nod of, you got this, you're on the right track.
Clearly you're on the right track. Clearly you understand what your inner genius is. Clearly you know from a product development that what makes things tick. Clearly your marketing expertise is this sense of community. So yeah, I'd say you're on the right track.
I got more questions for you.
Go ahead, shoot.
How do you know how to pick the right partner? Or what do you look for in a partner?
This is a great question, because I have made some significant errors in my existence, huge errors, and I've made some great, good decisions. So my experience is, and someone taught me this, you need to have, people can't stay, how do I say this? People, their narrative or what they're trying to sell you for the partnership, whatever, because you're selling one another. Like, I want to be a partner. I want you to do this. What do they want? Resources. They want your brain, whatever they want. They can't stay true to that for a long period of time. So one of the most critical things to do, it's like, especially in venture capital investing, is wait. How long till you see the failure? So I was taught by a brilliant operation in Utah. It's like, I won't invest in anything till I know for minimally 6 months, sometimes a year. So it's not always the most practical thing to do. Before you commit, you need that time. You need to get to know them. You need to do exactly what you're talking about. You need to understand who they are, what they're doing, what's their sense of community. Do they match up to their social media? Is there a calling card, as you put it, the correct calling card, or is that like there's nothing behind it? Or are they a piece of paper? Are they two-dimensional? Are they one-dimensional? Are they three-dimensional? So it's time. And it does come down to the same sort of thing. It's a feeling that sometimes morphs. So sometimes you will meet a partner like, this is it. I love this person. We're jiving. It's exciting. They're brilliant. They're motivating. They're getting me to, creative in many ways. And then we've all experienced this. A month later, like, where'd you go? What happened?
Yeah.
So,
which is where the 6 months to a year comes in.
Yes. And so taking time, seeing people can't stay on. You know what I mean by that?
Yes.
You're on.
You can't, motivation dies out. So
Right.
like everything falls down to your systems that you have in place in your life, your habits,
Sure.
and your routine.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to fall to that.
Sure.
So I feel like if that's not a high enough standard, don't expect people to change. And that's been a crucial thing I've had to learn these past 5 years is you want the best for people, but you can't bet on that. You can't bank on that.
It's sad because, like, sometimes even me telling you to wait and seeing and it still works out, they're still going to potentially change. And you still may become somewhat divergent in opinions, or because you're changing. We talked earlier, do people change? No, they don't change. But do they change? Yes, because they're learning and they're experiencing. And sometimes you have hidden, you can't see that agenda, or you can't see their need for our own validation, or you can't see like things that you couldn't care less about, suddenly they care about, which may be detrimental. So it's one of the hardest things in the world to do, and it's when it works, it's great. But even when you make the right decision, 5 years or 10 years down the line, it may be the wrong decision. So even those need to be potential pivots. So I always hate saying that you need the sort of the prenup or business planning, but you really do. Yeah. So like you look at when you're forming a partnership, you look at the worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario? You do the following things. These are violations. What do we do? So it's written. Like, okay, right. we're done, but we're going to do this in a civil, normal way. Versus, I think what a lot of people don't do that, because they get into something.
Just hop right in.
They hop right in. They like morphing, and then there's all sorts of
discretions, disagreements.
I had a dinner recently, this past weekend, with somebody who's probably one of the most successful people in the United States, and he said something to me which is like intrigued me, and it was brilliant, and it's like really I thought about it, and he called it social debt. You can look it up in Google, whatever. Mm-hmm. And people's behaviors are sometimes so driven by this social debt. Do you know what I mean by that?
I don't.
That means like I need to be nice, or someone does something for me, or why are they doing it? What are the motivations? How far do I let people in? Like, we're not only driven by all of these elements to our success. We're driven by, I want to help people. We're driven by, I need money to eat. We're driven by, there's a million different things. But there's another thing in here called social debt. So like, someone's nice to me. Do I owe them? Someone has learned their skill sets are capable of creating the situation where they're connected to you and they know that those skill sets. And so it suddenly impedes your ability to make the right business decisions. It was like intriguing. It's not like you don't know that or I don't know that. It was just an intriguing like way to define it. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And obviously the more successful you get, the more potential social debt you have. I want this, or I need this, or whatever. So it's a fascinating thing. So since I just learned this, I'm just passing it along to you. So as you form partnerships, as you form friendships, as you form these relationships, think about that. Think about like what else is going on. I'm not saying everyone has, ulterior motives. That makes me sound terrible, because I'm the person that goes out there and I always look at the glass half full. I'm the guy who's like, they're great. Don't worry about it. I love them. They're wonderful. And sometimes it doesn't work. I'm like, everyone's like, even though I have all these people yelling at me in my ear, like, Mike, what are you doing? You're like, no, you don't understand. And part of that equation is these like weird little debts that are created. Like they were nice to you. Why were they nice to you? Not always. I don't mean to sound so negative.
No,
it was
true.
A fascinating thought process. I'm just sharing it. So Cody, you thank you for being incredibly honest, transparent, human. It's a good name. It's a good brand. You're on brand with your name. It's great. So obviously I'm going to have you on again because I just love this interaction. It's just awesome. And so people will want to follow you and they want to learn from what you're doing and they want to learn about how you can help them as well. And this calling card, this digital calling card. So how are they finding you? How do they continue to talk to you?
Well, thanks, Mike, for having me on. It's an honor to be on the show. I love what you're doing. I love how you explain to read the tape and everything you do for the entire community and all the people you coach.
Thank you.
Everybody can follow me at Cody, CODY, the number 88 Human on Instagram. And that's probably the best place to connect with me. Just shoot me a DM, maybe reference the show. And, yeah, my DMs are always open for everybody.
Do you have any websites you want people to connect to?
Not yet. I'm working on the website.
Okay.
But at Cody88 Human on Instagram. That's probably the best place right now to contact me.
Well, thank you, Cody. Like I said, I'm going to have you on again. You probably don't want to come on again, but
no, I'd love to. I'm honored.
But I'm honored that you came on, and thank you for sharing your story. This is fantastic.
Thank you, Mike. It's always a pleasure linking up with you.
Absolutely. That was a great show. I'm excited for all of you to listen to that. Cody really knows how to create a community, how to execute that community to the best of his ability, and how to keep them all motivated, going, and how to monetize. So, I mean, what I think we learn from Cody is his innate ability to understand how people operate, how they think, and what they do with that, and how to literally make it happen. Also, what I learned from Cody is I didn't realize, even though his name is Cody Human, how humanistic he is and how important it is for him to do right by this world and to help people. So I think it's a great show, and it's a great example of what we all should strive to be. I hope you enjoy the show. You can follow us on every single platform: Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. And I love to say this is my line now, even platforms that haven't been invented, we're on those platforms. So please follow us, read the tape. Also, if you want to communicate with me, I am under the Shapiro method. Please, I love saying direct message because it makes me sound old, but DM me if you have any questions, thoughts. Any of you who potentially want to be on a show and want to be mentored, I love to share these stories. Please do that as well. So looking forward to seeing you next time.